Breaking right now, Washington is in absolute chaos. Moments ago, the special counsel officially confirmed the arrest of Donald Trump after a stunning late-night ruling that has blindsided the entire country. Eyewitnesses report federal teams moving fast, security tightened, and political leaders scrambling behind closed doors. Supporters are flooding the streets, critics are celebrating, and America is bracing for a showdown like never before. Stay right here, because what just happened could change U.S. politics forever. Washington erupted the moment the special counsel released the brief but historic statement confirming that former President Donald Trump had been officially arrested following a late-night ruling. The announcement was so abrupt, so coldly precise, that it felt like a political lightning strike hitting the heart of the nation. It appeared online without warning. No press conference, no build-up, no leaks beforehand. And within seconds, it triggered one of the most chaotic mornings the Capitol had seen in decades. The statement was shockingly short, offering nothing more than confirmation that the arrest had been carried out pursuant to the ruling issued last night, leaving every news outlet scrambling to decode what exactly had happened behind the scenes. This lack of detail only fueled panic, confusion, and wild speculation as Washington's political machinery lurched into a frenzy. Phones began buzzing in congressional offices like an emergency alarm. Staffers rushed out of elevators, aides sprinted between rooms clutching folders, and journalists flooded hallways with cameras rolling live, narrating history with no script to guide them. The shock was visible across every network. Anchors stumbling over their words, analysts trying to process the legal and political consequences, and commentators openly admitting they had no idea what the next 24 hours would look like. Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram exploded with reactions, misinformation, and real-time footage from government buildings. What little the special counsel did reveal created more questions than answers. Where had the arrest taken place? Was Trump cooperating? Were charges already unsealed? Was this the beginning of a larger coordinated move? The vacuum of clarity created a storm of anxiety across the political spectrum. Outside the White House, crowds gathered almost instantly, supporters shouting that the arrest was tyranny, critics calling it long overdue accountability. Police quickly set up barricades as the density of the crowd increased, forming a volatile mix of anger, celebration, and raw confusion. Reporters struggled to keep up as chants, arguments, and sirens blended into a chaotic soundtrack echoing through Pennsylvania Avenue. Meanwhile, Republican lawmakers began issuing furious statements, some calling the arrest an abuse of power, others demanding immediate hearings into the special counsel's authority. Democrats reacted cautiously, aware of the political firestorm brewing. Many refused to comment until more facts emerged, unwilling to ignite tensions further. But privately, sources described panic spreading through both parties as they attempted to assess the magnitude of the crisis and its implications for the upcoming election cycle. Within federal agencies, emergency meetings unfolded behind closed doors. Security teams were quietly placed on standby. Government vehicles moved in unusual patterns. Helicopters circled above sensitive buildings. Yet federal officials refused to provide even the smallest clarification about Trump's location, his condition, or the immediate steps that would follow. As hours passed, fragments of information began leaking from insiders who risked their jobs to talk anonymously. These leaks suggested that federal marshals were involved, that the arrest had occurred without resistance, and that Trump's legal team had been notified mere minutes before the public announcement. Still, none of these details were officially confirmed, leaving the nation suspended between rumor and reality. Outside a federal courthouse, a massive crowd formed in anticipation of Trump possibly appearing for an initial hearing. Reporters set up temporary studios on sidewalks, broadcasting non-stop, despite having almost no verified information. The atmosphere was tense, unpredictable, and charged with historical weight. Every car that drove past sparked speculation. Every movement behind courthouse windows was captured and analyzed. Experts began filling television screens with heated debates. Some insisted the arrest was necessary to uphold the law, while others warned that it could destabilize the country. Historians compared the moment to the most intense constitutional crises in American history. Legal scholars pointed to the unprecedented nature of arresting a former president. Political strategists predicted seismic consequences that would reshape elections, ideologies, and public trust for years. But through all of this chaos, one thing remained constant: the eerie silence from the special counsel's office. Hours passed without follow-up. Not a single new sentence was released. The original statement remained online in its exact form, unchanged, unedited, and unexplained. The entire country was left staring at the same cold line of text, feeling the weight of its implications grow heavier by the minute. By midday, the confirmation had already become the most shared government announcement in modern digital history. It spread across millions of posts, videos, and emergency broadcasts, imprinting itself on screens from rural towns to major cities. The shock wasn't fading, it was escalating. Washington felt like it was holding its breath, knowing that this single confirmation was only the beginning of something larger, more dramatic, and potentially more dangerous than anyone had prepared for. Late into the night, when most of Washington was asleep and the city's power corridors had gone quiet, a federal judge issued a ruling so unexpected and so legally explosive that it instantly rewrote the entire trajectory of the special counsel's case. The ruling appeared on the federal docket without any leaks, warnings, or hints from insiders. A rare occurrence in a town where secrets rarely stay buried. It was time-stamped, just after 11:47 p.m., a moment that would later be described as the turning point that triggered the most dramatic political escalation in modern American history. The ruling overturned key legal protections that had, until that moment, shielded former President Donald Trump from immediate arrest. These protections were a battleground for months, debated fiercely by legal scholars, political analysts, and constitutional experts. Some argued they were essential to maintaining stability and preventing political prosecution. Others insisted they were outdated barriers that obstructed accountability. But the judge's ruling tore them down with sharp, unequivocal language. It declared that Trump could no longer claim immunity tied to his former office, nor could he delay or block the execution of certain warrants. The decision sliced through layers of legal complexity with a clarity that stunned even seasoned attorneys who had predicted endless procedural delays. What shocked Washington wasn't just the content of the ruling, it was the timing. Issuing such a monumental decision in the dead of night broke every expectation about how the courts typically operate. Emergency notifications lit up the phones of prosecutors, court clerks, and legal teams across the city. The special counsel's office received the ruling within minutes and immediately entered what insiders later called activation mode, preparing documents, authorizations, and logistics that had been quietly waiting for this exact legal green light. The judge's opinion was scathing in tone, laying out a detailed argument that no individual, regardless of political status or former power, is beyond the reach of federal law. Analysts reading the ruling line by line noted the judge's repeated emphasis on accountability, constitutional limits, and the necessity of preventing ongoing obstructions to justice. The language was unusually forceful, signaling the court's determination to move the case forward without further delays or political interference. While the ruling was still being analyzed by legal experts online, the special counsel's team was already coordinating with federal agencies to initiate the next steps. Federal marshals were quietly briefed. Secure routes were mapped. Documents were prepared for immediate execution. It was a level of coordination that suggested the special counsel had anticipated this ruling and had been standing by, waiting for the legal barrier to fall. Meanwhile, in congressional offices, alerts began going off on staffers' phones. Some believed the late-night notification was a mistake until they opened the docket and saw the judge's signature for themselves. Panic spread through group chats belonging to political strategists, legal advisors, and senior officials. Some members of Congress demanded emergency calls with legal experts to determine whether the ruling could be challenged or delayed. Others immediately recognized it as the moment the special counsel had been waiting for. The ruling's implications spiraled through Washington's political landscape like a shockwave. It meant that the arrest, long speculated, endlessly debated, constantly predicted but never confirmed, could now legally happen at any moment. The ruling did not merely open the door. It cleared the hallway, unlocked the gate, and signaled that the pathway was fully operational. Even before dawn, legal commentators were live-streaming their reactions, dissecting every paragraph of the judge's opinion. Some praised the ruling as a historic reaffirmation of the rule of law. Others warned that it set a dangerous precedent that could destabilize the political system. But regardless of their interpretation, everyone agreed on one thing. This ruling changed everything. Throughout the night, rumors swirled. Some claimed Trump's legal team had been caught off guard. Others insisted they had anticipated a ruling, but were stunned by how aggressively the judge dismantled their protections. By early morning, reporters were gathering outside the courthouse, waiting for any official comment, but none came. The judge who issued the ruling remained silent. No statement, no interviews, no clarifications. The court's website simply displayed the ruling, cold, definitive, irreversible. It was the kind of moment that Washington insiders would analyze for years. A single legal decision, released quietly in the night, had set in motion a chain of events that would send shockwaves through the entire nation. It stripped away the final layer of legal insulation around Trump, cleared the path for authorities to act immediately, and created the conditions for the special counsel's historic confirmation of the arrest hours later. This was the ruling that triggered everything, the spark that ignited the political firestorm now engulfing Washington, pushing the nation into territory it had never entered before. Washington descended into chaos the moment news of the arrest confirmation reached Capitol Hill. Members of Congress were jolted out of routine meetings as staffers burst into rooms with phones in hand, whispering urgently and passing screens around like evidence in a courtroom. Within minutes, both parties were operating in full crisis mode. Hallways filled with lawmakers pacing back and forth, talking rapidly into phones, demanding updates, and summoning legal advisors to explain what the special counsel's confirmation actually meant. Some Republicans were visibly furious, calling emergency strategy sessions and scrambling to coordinate a unified response, while others appeared pale and shaken, understanding the gravity of what had just happened. At the same time, Democrats were no less tense. Although some celebrated quietly behind closed doors, many understood that this moment carried serious national consequences. Publicly, no one wanted to appear reckless or triumphant, but privately, emotions were running wild on both sides of the aisle. Political analysts and commentators reacted in real time, flooding television screens with rapid-fire interpretations. Every major network went live, cancelling scheduled programming as anchors tried to keep up with incoming information. Analysts shouted over each other, piecing together legal timelines, political fallout, and historic implications. Some declared the moment a victory for the rule of law, while others warned it would tear the country into even deeper political divisions. Online, the situation escalated even faster. Hashtags exploded across Twitter within minutes, producing millions of posts that mixed outrage, disbelief, celebration, and pure confusion. Supporters of Trump mobilized instantly, accusing the government of political persecution and calling for nationwide protests. Meanwhile, critics treated the confirmation as long-awaited accountability, posting clips, commentary, and emotional reactions as if witnessing history unfold in real time. In several major cities, crowds formed spontaneously. Some gathered at federal buildings, holding signs and chanting, while others erupted in heated arguments that sometimes turned physical. Police units were deployed around sensitive locations as tensions swelled. Businesses closed early in anticipation of unrest. Helicopters circled overhead, capturing aerial footage of swelling crowds and blocked-off streets. Insiders within Washington described the atmosphere as volatile and unpredictable. Text chains among staffers were filled with frantic messages, contradictory updates, and urgent pleas to verify information before reacting publicly. Lobbyists and strategists, usually calm under pressure, scrambled to forecast how the arrest might impact upcoming elections, donor confidence, and party leadership structures. Even foreign embassies requested emergency briefings, seeking clarity on whether the situation threatened international stability. Amid all the chaos, one truth became unmistakable. Washington was not prepared for this. The political establishment, long accustomed to leaks and warnings before major developments, was suddenly blindsided by a moment that carried historic weight. Panic, celebration, outrage, and confusion all collided at once, turning the Capitol into a real-time pressure cooker. And, as the frenzy continued to spread across the nation, everyone, from lawmakers to analysts to everyday citizens, understood that this meltdown was not the climax, but only the beginning of a much larger political storm. Behind closed doors, Washington was a battlefield of secrecy, tension, and frantic decision-making. The public only saw the headlines, but inside the federal buildings, the atmosphere was far more intense than anyone imagined. Within minutes, of the judge's late-night ruling, senior officials were summoned into unplanned emergency briefings. These meetings were held in secure rooms where phones were confiscated, windows were blacked out, and conversations were recorded only by those cleared to hear them. According to leaked information from multiple insiders, the government's top legal and security teams gathered around conference tables to determine how fast the special counsel's order could be executed and how to prevent political backlash from spiraling into nationwide unrest. The discussions were described as tense, divided, and at times explosive. Some federal officials pushed for immediate action, arguing that delaying even a few hours could risk leaks, interference, or attempts to undermine the ruling. Others insisted that acting too quickly might trigger chaos, especially without a public explanation or unified message. This internal split created friction between agencies that normally operate in sync. The Department of Justice and federal marshals pressed for rapid deployment. Several intelligence officials, however, cautioned that the situation required strategic timing to avoid security risks. These debates stretched late into the night, with raised voices, slammed folders, and urgent calls to higher-ups. One source claimed that a senior official warned the group that hesitation could compromise everything, while another argued that moving now without stabilization protocols is dangerous. And meanwhile, in another secure room, political advisors met with representatives tasked with managing public communication. Their task was nearly impossible: prepare for one of the most historic announcements in American history without knowing when the special counsel would reveal it. Draft statements were written, scrapped, rewritten, then abandoned altogether as new information arrived from the operational teams. At the same time, leaks began trickling out from frustrated staffers who felt the public deserved to know that something enormous was unfolding behind the scenes. These anonymous insiders spoke of a deep split within certain agencies. Some officials fully supported the special counsel's aggressive approach, while others feared the long-term consequences for national unity and political stability. One insider described the mood as a house divided, all under the same roof. By dawn, the closed-door meetings had evolved into a coordinated but uneasy plan of action. Agencies were aligned, but not fully united. Every move was calculated, every message reviewed, every decision weighed against potential fallout. And while the public only received a single, icy statement confirming the arrest, those in the rooms where decisions were made understood the truth. It took hours of argument, fear, secrecy, and high-stakes conflict to make it happen. The confirmation of Trump's arrest leaves America heading into one of the most unpredictable chapters in its history. Legal experts warn that the next steps could include fast-tracked hearings, additional indictments, and a courtroom battle that may test the limits of presidential power. Politically, the fallout is immediate. Protests erupting in major cities, lawmakers demanding emergency sessions, and both parties preparing for a volatile election season shaped by unprecedented events. Across the nation, tensions rise as supporters and critics clash online and in the streets, creating an atmosphere charged with uncertainty. Some analysts predict the crisis could lead to constitutional challenges over executive immunity, federal authority, and the boundaries of political prosecution. For millions of Americans, the question is no longer what happened, but what this moment will do to the country's future, and whether the institutions built to protect democracy can withstand the storm now unfolding.